Hello, once again. My name is Steve Shiger. Welcome to C9K. With me, as always, is...
Yes, I'm his co-host, Michael Foster. We have a packed show for you today. Tool time coming up first with Bear. Very excited for that. And we're going to be talking about Kelsey Hightower leaving, a couple hacks, and some big spending in the security AI ML space. Welcome to C9K.
Super excited to have a special guest.
Yes, special guest and a packed show. It's been 2 weeks. I'm very excited to be back. We've been talking about Bear for a month behind the scenes, so we're super excited to have Nipun Gupta, COO of Bear, come in and give us a live demo. We're also be talking about Kelsey Hightower's recent departure, along with some hacks. What else do we have?
GitHub RepoJacking, the cost of upgrading Kubernetes, which is a really interesting article. I'm not going to spoil it.
And,
as always, some mapped out exploits.
Yeah, and as always, all the links are in the description below. We post it, and we go live every Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. UK time? I forget what the standard is. But yeah, I don't want to ramble too much about what we're doing. We're very excited to have a special guest. Instead of running the tool time script, we get to run the special one.
Our favorite.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, recognized and known the world over as the people's champion of the world,
Nipun Gupta. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. I don't think I have had a more explosive introduction ever on a show, so I really appreciated that.
Yeah, anytime you want to come back on. Nipun, for the people who don't know you, what do you do at Bear? How'd you get here? Give us a quick breakdown of you and your product.
Sure. So, hey everyone, I'm Nipun Gupta. I'm COO at Bearer. That means I do everything that the company requires me to do in order to make Bearer the best it can be. Really, practically speaking, I lead go-to-market, marketing, as well as customer and market development, helping company understand what is the right product strategy for enterprise security teams. That's all I do. And how did I get here? So I started by actually getting my master's of cybersecurity at Carnegie Mellon. That's really my introduction to security, which is an amazing program. I think everybody who is trying to be really scientific about cyber should take a look. It gives you a good balance of technical, policy, and other sort of skills that you need in order to be successful for a long-term career in security. And then the best way to learn more was to join consulting. Of course, like most of us in security were former consultants, because security can be done without a dedicated security team if we have the right advice. So did that at PwC and then NCC Group, all in US in the West Coast, and then joined Deloitte right after, working on more complex strategic projects, larger Fortune 500 companies, all focused on application, network, infrastructure security. And then soon enough, after that, started to develop an interest in startups, and that converted into an opportunity for Deloitte to do a managed services offering wrapper around some of the most exciting and innovative products in cybersecurity. Worked on those partnerships, and then led security innovation at Deutsche Bank for 3 years, where I learned what kind of challenging stuff goes on at a large financial institution, and how complex it can be to solve some really simple problems. But we did solve those, and those are very fulfilling achievements indeed. Right after, I got infected by the startup bug even more, and I wanted to build products. So I moved to London to build integrations for Devo. and then about 6 months ago, decided to join Bearer full time after advising them for a few months. And yeah, since then I've been here.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Steve, I think we have a good hot take out of that. Security can be done without a security team.
I know. We'll save that for another episode.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Too much time to talk about that. It's always fascinating to hear everybody's origin story because there's never a straightforward route in cybersecurity. And people watch. We're like, how do I get in? It's like, well, let's just listen to as many of these as possible. There's many avenues to get here. Okay, so excellent. Thanks for the intro, Nipun. And you're going to show us live Bearer. So give us an intro as to what Bearer is and what it does, and then we'll go forward and conquer.
Yeah. I mean, like Bearer was formed around a very simple concept that we want to be able to make security very easy and understandable and accessible to developers. And then on the road to making this possible, we discovered that a lot of the software security tools that are available in the market don't really realize their full potential, like what they can do to actually make it easier as well as more relevant for security practitioners and engineering teams both. In fact, I would add one more team that is starting to pop up in a lot of our discussions is privacy engineering team. This is a totally new sort of concept, didn't exist 5 years ago. But since GDPR, CCPA, a lot of new regulations and laws have become practical and enforceable. These are the teams that want to involve privacy at the earliest stages of the SDLC. So, yep, this is what Bearer does. It makes it really easy for developers, security teams, engineering teams, and privacy teams to develop and ship trustworthy products by helping them scan, understand, identify security and privacy risks at the earliest stages of their software development lifecycle.
Very cool. And you have a cloud product as well, and an open source CLI that was launched, correct?
That's right. Yes. In fact, our CLI has been such an inspiring product for us because we are closing in on about 50,000 scans that have already been run using Bearer CLI in the last 4 months that we have been live. About 10,000 downloads, about 1,200 stars on GitHub. So all of that is exciting to see that there's development community who is not afraid to try out security products anymore, provided that they're actually built closer to what they expect and what they can use in their workflows.
Yeah, no kidding. Developers adopting a security tool to keep security off their back because they're hardening at the beginning. That's sort of the story, I think, right? Awesome. I'm very excited to see this. You mind if we go through it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right.
Okay. So I'm on the GitHub page for Bearer. And here you can see it's really, really simple to actually install it wherever your code is. We do have GitHub Actions for it, GitLab CI integration as well. But the simplest one that I can show you today is on my own laptop, which is using Brew. I installed it already, and I have it here on my CLI. So I will take you here. So this is what Bearer looks like. Takes me back to my Metasploit hacking days, and it's nice that we have a good designer to make it colorful. So with that being said, today Bearer can scan any code written in JavaScript, Java, TypeScript, Ruby. In fact, we're about to kind of share a very exciting benchmark because it's very hard for security teams to spend the time in comparing products. So we did that comparison already, and that would be easy for any team to make a decision to what's important for you. How do you want to buy your next SAST product or adopt it? Really. So SAST, the static application security testing, that's what Bearer does. Today I have a couple of repositories I chose for this demo, Rails Goat being one of them, and the other one that is Steve recommendation is Juice Shop. So which one would you like to start with, Steve?
I'm unfamiliar with Rails Goat, so I kind of want to see that first. And I'm also going to ask if you can make the CLI a little bit bigger, just because I figure there's People,
Absolutely.
unlike me, that are not watching this on a 60-inch monitor.
Oh, do you mind just a little Command plus? There you go.
Yeah, there we
Perfect.
go. Beautiful.
Is that good?
Perfect.
Okay. So let's start with Rails code. Really simple. Just say bearer scan X in the same directory that you are. Starts to scan. Kind of, you know, while this happens, I'm interested in kind of sharing like some of the challenges that I've heard from developers and security teams alike. Right, like one is the slow scan speeds. It seems like that one is resolved here. I think if you ask any of the legacy scanners to scan Rails code in I don't know 5 seconds, they will probably say it's impossible, right? And this is how fast Bearer works. What's interesting here is that you see the findings report right here, and you can go up and scroll to the high findings, click exactly to find the line number, and we've on purpose not made it too verbose here, right? Because all the findings details are on our docs pages, so you can go and figure out like how to fix these. But we wanted to kind of highlight all the relevant findings here, and there's a little bit of a difference in how Beta reports versus other tools. We actually combine the anti-patterns detected for security and privacy, and accordingly bump up your severity rating. So, for example, if there's a SQL injection in a database and that there is a function call to that database that contains sensitive data, that will be a more critical finding or a higher severity finding than ordinarily what OWASP or CWE recommends SQL injection to be.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Is there a way to filter?
With
So
that,
could I just see the highs, or is there like? So I'm already asking questions. Maybe I should hold on.
No. It's a good question. I mean, today you can do all the filtering that is natively available. After you export the report, or you can use some command line, knowledge to do that. But it's not something that Bearer can do by itself. However, we can do some more interesting things that average SAST product that you may have experienced may not be able to. Namely, we can actually do a privacy report.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So this will give you all the sensitive data detected and the instances and the classification of it. So, for example, in Rails code, there's 44 instances of email address.
Okay.
46 for first name. Yeah. And
That's
you can
very
get
cool.
all these details in HTML, of course, export, for verbose output as well. But that's something that you can do. One more thing that you may have seen is that it says generating data flow. So I can also show you what the data flow diagram looks like for the code. Some people call it extended SBOM nowadays, which is something that you didn't necessarily use as a direct dependency in your code, but it's something that your code is interacting with externally. So if you're sending data to a logger, for example, that's a huge concern of a lot of companies, that you're not leaking sensitive data to loggers. Open APIs, OpenAI, that's what we can easily detect as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very cool.
So these are all the dependencies in your gem file. But if you scroll up, you can start to see like exactly what you're sending to these APIs. So like
I see.
Ruby
Yeah.
session store. Yep.
Used to be only false. Very interesting. Email, object name parameters. Huh.
So yeah, the idea here is very simple, that I think SAST or static AppSec testing has been very focused on the traditional OWASP top 10 CWE detections. and we found ways to create more value since you're already scanning code for both security and privacy teams.
Now, when you run a command, it says it's checking rules. Are those configurable? Are there things that you can add? Is there a list of all the rules that are run?
Great question. So let me actually pivot to our docs. So we understand this is a huge problem that you don't want to be black boxed when it comes to AppSec, right? Like you want the ability to customize rules, you want the ability to select, unselect, build new rules, and this is what we enable in Bearer as well. So in fact, you can search through the rules that we already have, 172, or you can build your own very easily. Creating a custom rule is available on the open source version. It's YAML, so.
Yeah. Do you recommend, because it's open source, do people contribute rules? Do you find that there's a little bit of a community building slowly? Because 172, I feel like you're going to get more and more, right, as this thing becomes more and more popular.
Absolutely. I think we are at really day zero of Bearer's like community today. We have about 80 people on our Discord, and we welcome more and more contributions. We haven't had as many. I would think like probably 10 or so. That is specifically when it comes to rules. There have been tons of pull requests about other things, but rules, it's not easy to get people to write rules and contribute. I think people write a lot of custom rules, and today we have the ability to use a custom rule without contributing it. So you can do that. So I think there's a lot of that happening, but we would love to get more and more contributions, especially like on new languages that we release. So we've just about to release Java. That would be great to get more community contributions for Java rules.
Yeah, and I see there's a configuration file. I'm assuming that if you're running it on a specific repo, you can eliminate some rules because you know they're not relevant. And then will the process be faster for that data collection and data flow and all that?
I think it will certainly go faster, but to be honest with you, you're looking at seconds, maybe minutes. So I don't think it will make that huge of a difference to the end user. But certainly you will reduce the kind of things you have to look at, right? And which is, again, all about optimizing your AppSec processes. Like you want to be able to make decisions quickly, triage stuff quickly. That's why you don't want all the rules enabled by default if you don't care about them.
A question about the addition of rules generally. Is there a way, because it's common to be overwhelmed by an initial scan by a SAST tool. So is there a way to say, okay, yeah, we know we have all these. Can I just ignore all these and have a no new issues going forward kind of policy? Is that easy to implement?
Yeah, so now we're starting to ask about features that are hard to implement than open source.
Yeah, they are.
And I think because then you have to be stateful, and today we are stateless, right? Like if you offer a CLI, we can offer the capability to do scanning again. Now you have to compare the scans, run diffs and whatnot. You could do that, right? Honestly, but that's really depending on how skillful you are with command line, rather than us like kind of providing that capability natively. But we have provided that in the SaaS product, in the Bearer Cloud product, where you can start to kind of take benefits of this using the UI. And this is where like I think the DevSecOps process takes the next step and goes to the security team, and they can start to use that. So yeah, I can certainly pivot to that and start to kind of share how that works.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Because I know that security teams would love that, to show, the risk slowly going down instead of popping up and saying, hey, there's 48 different issues you have to solve, right? Release after release, when that starts shrinking, that's what's going to make teams happy, right?
There we go.
Absolutely.
I asked that question as a way to pivot. That's why I did that.
Layup.
I could see that totally. Okay. So this is really the landing page for Bearer Cloud. Today, we don't have any fancy dashboards. We're still building those with the help of our design partners. But those will contain all the trending data about how your company is doing in terms of fixing, what sort of exposure do you have to sensitive data, what other trends we can mine from the data that we have from so many scans, right? Like if there are issues that keep popping up, maybe you need to build a guardrail around it, maybe you need to build a policy around it, training, etc. So I think those things are still in the works, but what we do have today is the ability to do findings management at scale, as well as use the sensitive data context to do prioritization, continuous sort of threat modeling, understand the risks of your products better. So I'll start here. I think it's very easy to add new projects. You can add it locally using the API key, using GitHub Actions, GitLab CI. We also do reporting of findings to GitHub and GitLab, but they won't contain the sensitive data detections that we do because they haven't really created the UI to be able to show that. But what we do have here is the ability to quickly filter. Like if you only want to work on projects with critical findings, of course, you can start here. You can only work on projects with personal sensitive data. You can start here. I think this is a question that you often hear during threat modeling. It's like, where is my biggest exposure? I want to start with those applications for higher impact and higher risk reduction. So you could do that.
Very cool. And when the project comes up, when it's saying personal data, is that the amount of personal data instances or just the number of projects that come up with a personal data that's sensitive?
On this page, it's the number of projects, but let's say I go into SourceGraph, this SourceGraph's open source repo. Now I can see the instances of sensitive data that we have identified, right? So there are 18 instances of sensitive data that we have identified here. Yeah. And you can also see deeper categorization of this data, right? Authentication, social network, medical health. This is all done with one of our customers who is a large healthcare company, telemedicine company. And they took all the GDPR classifications and helped us build like this 122 different data types detection in the product, which is, by the way, customizable and extensible too on the open source side.
Awesome. Very cool. And when onboarding people, because I see sort of a projects user and then repo underneath, typically if you have these big teams, do they just get added to a specific project so the developers automatically go in, they see that dashboard and all their, let's say, GitHub or GitLab repos associated with it?
Yeah, so today the way customers use Bearer is that this product is primarily for the security team or the IT team, and the open source side, as well as the GitHub, GitLab feedback, which we, by the way, provide pull request feedback as well, is for the developers, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
And you know, if you're working on remediating a finding, for example, let's go to SourceGraph and let's say they wanted to work on this finding, they can easily add a Jira issue. There's a bidirectional integration, and so you can link it to an existing one, add it to a new one, and that will open up the ability to collaborate on remediation.
Yeah, and so the strength is in the CLI being implemented at the developer / the CI level. So they see those results. And then the security team sees the same results. They'll go open a Jira issue, say, hey, we need to fix this before the next release. These are the two things we care about. Developer sees the same issue locally or in the CI. And so there's no wasted time. They can do it asynchronously. Security team can decide when they want to step in, when not to step in. So there's a lot of flexibility there, right?
Exactly. And I think this is what, today's AppSec demand is, right? Like, they care about developer adoption. They care about the ability to block on certain very critical issues. Care about the ability to train developers. So the feedback that you get in pull requests will start to kind of move them in the right direction when it comes to security. And if there is a decision to be made right there, they can easily do that. If there's a guardrail drift, they can easily detect and implement that change to unblock themselves. So those are the benefits of a DevSecOps workflow product that we have made.
Very, very cool.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm a big fan of anything that starts with open source and is there to kind of make it developer friendly so that when security teams start working with the reporting, the more advanced reporting here, it's already in use, and it's a nice
Yeah.
migration upwards. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And the more things you do with the finding, it'll be all in the logs. So anything, let's say if you remediate the findings, for example, there's a lot of resolved findings here, right? And by the way, this is kudos to the source graph team who has already detected and resolved these findings. Because every time we rescan and the finding disappears, then we call it resolved. So of course it was resolved,
Cool.
in the releases between 23rd and 29th June. So on the open source side, we can detect that, and we can start to kind of mark it resolved, right? So that's why you can see the log. You can also do other things with the open findings, like you can ignore it. This is some of the things that you were asking for, Steve, that you can allow it here, saying that, you know what, we know about this, we're going to fix it in a future release. So don't highlight it next time, just call it allowed, right?
Cool.
You can also mark it as a false positive. Of course, we are talking about a probabilistic detection here, right? We cannot be deterministic. We don't have access to real-time attack data. So we have to say that there's a high probability that this is something that's going to result in cross-site scripting issue, right? That doesn't mean it's going to be 100% true all the time, right? So
Yep.
we are never 100% sure with the AppSec, right? So especially at the static code analysis level. But you can mark it as a false positive and remove it from annoying you again. And you can also assign it natively to another team member in your security team or engineering team if you choose to onboard them. But otherwise, you can easily add a Jira issue. And
yes, my typical way of doing things. Hey, Steve, this is your issue to fix. Please go do it.
Send me a Slack message.
Send you a Slack message.
Yeah.
So we do have a Slack integration as well. So
perfect.
whenever, you can set it up and you can easily select a channel to test it, and so relevant information will be shared on Slack. So critical finding detected in the scan, for example.
Perfect.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Nipun, I know you have to go at the half hour. I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Bearer.com, that's BEARER.com. Probably the best place to get started, either through cloud or the CLI. All the information's up there. And then again, very easy to get started on the GitHub. Kudos to the engineering team, having like Homebrew, Ubuntu, RHEL, all that stuff. That Docker makes it very easy to get started. Just want to give you one last chance. Thoughts? Where do you want people to go? What's next for the company? The floor is yours.
Final words.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I think, static code analysis, code security testing, it's something that we do for hygiene, right? That means that there will be a lot of findings that you will see. But ideally, you want this process to be optimized as much as possible. And we are going to enable you to do that with the DevSecOps friendly workflows that we have created, but also for security team to get a lot more context in making decisions. So go to github.com/bearer/bearer, give us a star, get started, and give us your feedback. Join our Discord, start contributing. We'd love to get more and more rules and recipes from you.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming on, and hope you enjoy your weekend. Since you're in the UK, you're almost
Thank you.
almost there.
Almost there. You too. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks,
Bye.
Stefan.
All right, on to the news. Are you ready, Steve?
I'm ready.
Yeah, thanks again. That was fun doing tool time first, mixing it up.
Weird.
It was.
Let's do. All right, head to the news. Ready? Add it to the stream. Rejigging.
Yeah, this one broke the internet a bit the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. There we go. Kelsey Hightower. This freaked me out because it's like, I'm like, what? He's gone. Retirement from, okay, he's not retiring from the world. I think that's maybe where some people, including me, maybe overreacted. A little curious why so many people like it. 25.5 thousand. All right. Yeah. Well, so he's just retiring from Google. because he's still accepting speaking gigs if that's necessary, and he must be in the wonderful world of I can probably live off speaking gigs by now.
Yeah, very interesting. A lot of comments about shares. I mean, he's been working on this project for a long time. So honestly, kudos for sticking with it for 7-8+ years, I think, since he got started. Give him that. It was really interesting to see him immediately have some more rational takes on containers and Kubernetes over the last week. If you want to, go check out his Twitter thread. We don't need to deep dive, but very Kubernetes focused with Google. As soon as he retires now, it's okay, you don't need to put everything in a container. Not everything needs to be a microservice. Make sure that Kubernetes is the right fit for you. So very interesting to see what's going to come out of Kelsey soon.
More unfiltered. I like
more unfiltered stuff. That's what we like on this show. And I had one of the next ones that popped up that I thought was interesting. And Nipun brought it up that the wider tech market, cybersecurity outpaces the wider tech market with a 12.5% growth. Shout out to Palo Alto Networks, who grew 23.6% and holds the leading market share of that.
They do. There they are.
Yeah, very interesting. What I thought was cool is there's a lot of growth in this space, specifically because of government push, because governments are pushing teams to be more and more secure, which means we need more and more solutions that solve these problems. And it's why I think you're going to see a continued investment in the space. I think that security is one of those things that are pushed by the government and less of a market requirement. Is that fair?
Totally. Yeah. I found the number here. The top 12 accounted for, almost 50% of total customer spend. Like, wow. And you know what happens when the top 12 read that? They go, but that's it? We gotta work on that.
Yeah, exactly. So true. So true. It's pretty funny.
All right. Moving swiftly forward. You can tell I've been reading all these. 63% of IT leaders measure IT success by reduced risks. You added this. What do you think about this? I have a take on it, but you.
I did. I want to apologize. One, because it will gatekeep you. You have to subscribe to see the whole article. But I've been trashing IT leaders, I think, for over the last couple months about how they analyze risk. And I just thought this report was interesting because it flies in the face of what I've been saying. Overall IT performance, obviously 60%. How do your IT leaders not? That should be 100, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious how they ask the questions, but data security, process risk compliance, and need to improve agility. What I thought was interesting was the data security part of it, because I think that it's not about cybersecurity or process security. It's managing people's data. That's going to be the hot button issue over the next 10 years with AI, ML, new regulations, new restrictions. People are already posturing themselves to make sure that the data layer is secure, or that they can go and create it in different regions. I mean, Canada just had a new bill on how media information can be shared. And so they, Google and Facebook just said, no, we're not doing it. There could be a future where they go and drop a specific version in Canada for the Canadians if there's enough of a push. So just the data specific part I thought was interesting, worth calling out.
Really, the most interesting thing in this page for me is this hilarious last statement here. Software development as the most and least efficient aspects of their IT organization. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's a hot take. I mean, I think a lot of it's a people issue, right? Last minute changes, business is coming in, engineering, it has a sprint, and all of a sudden things need to be shifted. That wastes time. Not having a proper roadmap, a lot of things that contribute to that. But that's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm really curious too. Like, just right from the title, success by reduced risk. One of the biggest, most kind of finger in the air things about cybersecurity is defining risk. It's very organization specific, and it's very much about your processes. And I think it would be interesting to ask the same IT leaders how confident they are in their definition of risk.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Ability to measure it, let alone whether they're reducing it. So that would another hot take potentially there.
Yeah. Stay tuned for the hot take coming up, but we'll save that one for 2 weeks from now.
Okay. All right. Some good news in the tooling front. James has been on the show once. He was showing us, I can't remember the name of his other tool, whatever it's called. Doesn't matter. Go back and watch a previous show with James. Search our GitHub. I can't remember what his other one's called. But this is called Gap. And I really like it because James, his tools are very simple. So simple that he has almost no description here. But the idea is GitHub action immutable tags. So if you see here, a good example is actions setup go version 401. Just like containers, tags are not immutable. The actual numbered tags, you can upload 8 versions and keep the same tag. It doesn't matter. However, much like containers, the SHA is. So what it does is it runs through and looks up what you've got and then rebuilds your GitHub action workflows with the actual immutable format. Now, it sounds simple, but it's great because like nobody ever goes and looks these up. They just go, yeah, that looks like, or you typically in the instructions for how to use, say, setup go, they've got a cut and paste bit of action code that either comes directly out of the marketplace or you go and get it and you just paste it in. It's always a version. So this is a nice little tool you can just run on your action workflows and it hardens them nicely for you. Should you get some kind of weird GitHub action dependency manipulation attack. So I think it rocks. I went looking to see if there are any others out there. I found one other that I'd also never heard of. So I don't think it's the most common solution. I don't think it's it's not on the top of people's minds in terms of utilities. But once I saw it, I thought I like it.
Yeah, very useful. Small, simple things.
Yeah,
like, an outsized impact for sure.
Yeah, really. And then the final one, I believe, is you added the cost of upgrading hundreds of Kubernetes clusters.
Yeah, hundreds is the big one. The writer, I'm blanking on the name. I think you'll see more. Pierre Mavro. Very interesting breakdown of how they upgraded hundreds of Kubernetes clusters. The cost of it, the slowdown to development speed. Talking about the different nodes, all the issues, CRDs, API changes, etc. And I read this and it clicked on me, like, why do big companies want support for 10 years on something? It's because of this. Because how do you talk to an entire company that's using a large platform and say, hey, we're doing this upgrade process. We're doing it every 3 months to be in line with the Kubernetes upgrades. And you're going to have to pause pushing your applications for a day while you do it. And how do you orchestrate that? Is there a team that sits on top of your 100 teams? It's a human issue, I think. And so there's that huge cost that he's showing. If you can simplify even like 3 or 4 of those in the upgrade process, it's a huge change in terms of time. But very interesting about how they did it. Non-production clusters first, all the testing, then production, testing, the ability to roll back. You can do all this with Kubernetes. All the capabilities are there. But the human and time cost I found was shocking. Definitely worth a read.
It blew me away. It's definitely worth a read because, I mean, when you said cost, I was thinking, oh, they're just going to go through, it's going to be no typical cost analysis on timing or whatever. And like, no, it's an awesome, like almost like a how-to.
Yeah. Tech issues, they use Helm charts. And so a lot of the Helm values will change with updates.
Yeah.
So, how do you manage all those? Do you do a diff? You have to make sure that there's no breaking changes. And this is all up to one team to go and look at those clusters and decide that. So you need an entire SRE team for your hundreds of clusters, right? That is also a cost. Yeah. But yeah, definitely a great write-up. Shows you all of the learned lessons. And what's next? More tests. So very cool.
I like this little finish. We spent months getting the quick level deployments with the options we wanted. Did we finish? No.
Yes, very well written too.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. All right, Steve, I think you're up for the hot take this week.
Yes. All right. My hot take is
All you.
Oh, 80% of startups that you see in the cybersecurity space are copies of copies of copies. Are surprisingly not actually all not that innovative. And I liken it to the idea of coffee shops. You know, when you see a cool local coffee shop like Black Sheep Coffee shows up or something, inevitably, if they have any inkling of success or popularity, there's going to be a Costa and a Starbucks and a Nero and some other niche coffee shop with a cart that's going to pop up out front to try to eat a piece of their pie. And that's essentially what happens. And if you look at like a current example, right now, use a hot, let's say, topic, but not necessarily an acronym, might be something like ASPM, Application Security Posture Management. You're like, what? We've got CSPM. We know what that is. Somebody made up KSPM, Kubernetes Security Posture Management. I'm not sure whether that's sticking. And yet this one showed up. And a good example would be something like, and I'm not plugging any of these companies, no affiliation, like Bionic says they're experts in ASPM. Petro says they're experts in ASPM. I think a new one, which is an offshoot of some of the original engineering team at Aqua called Backslash. Now they're the experts at AppSec and ASPM as well. And did we need another one? Is the take different? And they seem to be different flavors of the same thing. And there's a really good reason for that, is that once, if everyone said, it's done, then someone, if it's really good, someone will buy it. Say somebody buys, I don't know, let's say someone buys Bionic. Well, then Bionic's gone. It's a good example of that would be StackRox being acquired by Red Hat. That's just one solution that's now part of Red Hat. And that is an instant indicator that it's hot. So all of these other copies of the copies, maybe they're competing, maybe they're not. Maybe they are all just improving together, knowing that there's going to be a purchase flurry that many of them can cash out on. So when you're looking for different solutions or different point solutions, I guess my advice is they're probably all good. All five that are doing the same thing, they're probably all pretty good. It's just a case of knowing that don't spend too much comparing notes, because they're probably all friends and they probably know that they're just copying one another. So I think that's my hot take, is that it's intentional that you see 5 of every subject come up in waves. And now, if you're working for one of these companies and you're like, no way, man, we hate those guys, we think we do it way better. All right, leave a note in the comments.
Yes, leave a note in the comments. I think that's spot on. All right, Steve, on to the crazy stuff. I was tempted to copy your hot take, but then I thought that was too meta.
Yeah.
All right, we got
right.
Canada. Canada's making the news again. Canada always makes the news only for dumb stuff, but lately it's always just the things we do bad. I mean, typical media is the way it works. But
is this Suncor?
Yeah, Suncor. So this affects more than just Canada. I'm being ridiculous, but a big hack. And basically, if you go to any Petro Canada, they don't take credit cards right now. Everything's been shut down while they figure out how it works. It was a pain when I was driving to the cottage and you had to walk in. I guess they have a side credit machine, but they don't take it at the pumps now. You have to walk in to do it. And then if she screws up the number, like the fuel ratio, then it wouldn't work. Anyways, it was a big grievance for me. And so I'm very mad at these hackers.
Well, if you're mad, you can have your say.
Yeah.
I guess. Well,
join the conversation.
Man Schultz at Cloud. So did they release how or why? Because the fact you can't take payment systems is like, it sounds like a real PCI DSS. What the?
Yeah.
This is why it's here.
There's going to be a fine after. I mean, the fact that they're losing out on probably, millions up to billions of dollars in
it's true.
Lost transactions.
They're finding themselves.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna be too happy internally. I would hate to be on that cybersecurity team right now.
That's what we
especially when things like this make the headlines, because I feel like then the government has to get involved. They go down the chain, say, "Hey, go investigate these people." It becomes a nightmare, right?
You got it.
Yes.
Right. Good luck, PetroCan.
Yeah. On to other hacking news.
Hackers threatened to leak 80 gigabytes of confidential data stolen from Reddit. Now, the W2F part of this is, I think you pointed it out to me when you added it here, is more to do with the controversial API price hikes, right?
Yeah. All the different social media and tech companies are changing their API changes. It really is an oligopoly in tech when, Twitter Blue comes out and then Instagram does the same. Twitter changes APIs. That means Reddit can change it because they've always been wanting to do it. They're waiting for somebody else to take the first step to take all the negative press, and then they can go and do it. Now, unfortunately, Reddit is so open in terms of community, they're going to face a backlash regardless. But I'm kind of curious, what is the data? 80 gigabits does not seem like a lot. And they asked for the Reddit API changes to be reverted. That was one of their requests. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's pretty crazy what you'll do to make a business kneel. Unfortunately, Reddit's been bleeding money for a decade. So I think this change either had to happen at some point, but something in the business model would change. Otherwise, it's going to go bankrupt and be bought out by somebody else that's going to probably go bankrupt after.
Okay. On the fly hot take.
Yeah.
All right. We have a couple more actually. Oh, is that a couple here? Millions of GitHub repositories likely vulnerable to RepoJacking attack. This is probably a little out of date, but we didn't talk about it. So it's worth defining what a RepoJack is. A RepoJack is when, I think they describe it pretty well down here. Here we go. This is a good example. I'll highlight that. When you access whoever Socratic org math steps, say it was acquired or migrated over to Google, so now it's at Google Math Steps, then it will fetch a Google's repository. So dependencies on particular GitHub are maintained. If you don't maintain your dependency, you still get routed to the correct thing. The problem the world had was that if Socratic org decided, well, I'm out, I sold my product and we're done, and this sort of user / namespace goes away. By the way, this is user and this is repo, and together they form a namespace within GitHub. If you can reproduce that because the user goes away, then the forward stops. So that's and you become the feeder again for potentially with a malicious version of what used to be forwarded to Google.
Yeah. So if you change your username, they use an example. If you change your username to a new username, there's a link between the two so that your old stuff doesn't necessarily go away. And one of the issues is that if you just had one username, there was a way for people to go in, create an old user, and then link it to your new and be able to gain access using your credentials by saying like, oh, I'm the old user's account. So that was
exactly a
very interesting one. Apparently it had been fixed.
No, there's a warning.
Yeah.
So if you go and try and do it, it says you can't do it. However, I think the gist of this article is that Aqua did a bit of very clever research on an absolute ton of repositories, and we're able to determine that there are still opportunities, something like 1.25 million repositories, and found almost a 3% success rate on RepoJacking. So 36,000 repositories were still vulnerable to it. So we knew it was possible. This is the first report that's come out of it to say still possible. So shocking.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, on to the last crazy thing that we came across in the WTF section.
Crazy weird?
Yeah. A new CVE database.
Okay, I guess we needed this. It's prettier.
Yeah. This has already been done. What's the value here? Are we just pulling from NIST and making it pretty?
Kind of maybe looks like that. I don't know what it's for yet. I did though, because it's almost like headlines. When we were, planning the show, I kind of went, had a little flick through it. Good for me. I don't know, because we talk about CVEs, but I don't know really the use for anybody else. I did do the newsletter, which comes down in a fancy way and is very buggy.
Okay.
I wish it's very difficult to sign up for the newsletter, but I did sign up for the newsletter and thought, well, that might be useful because we talk every couple of weeks, and getting a newsletter would mean I'd have something that told me latest CVEs, and maybe I can throw a filter on that. I don't know otherwise. I don't know. I don't
And
know
my
what it's for.
WTF really stems from the fact that we have to convince security practitioners about different databases, like the Red Hat Security Advisory or the SUSE Linux Security Advisory. And then we're adding another database. We're going to add probably another one. And it's like, can we just have like a little variety, but not too much? That,
yeah, I haven't got
tough.
my newsletter yet. I'm wondering if there's ads in the newsletter, and this is a way to make money.
That's probably why they got you.
I know, I'm a sucker. Damn it.
It sucks.
All right.
It's okay. They
That's
got
the
your
last
ads.
one.
So you'll be,
Yeah.
no. We're spending money now, just like you on your ads. Yes. Spending money, some big money.
Cybersecurity startup Sierra secures 100 million Series B at a 500 million valuation, and they're Israeli. What is the price?
Yeah, Sequoia and Cyberstart's leading the venture. That's a big series.
That's
B.
pretty good. 100 million, you know. But what is interesting, and I think we've talked about this before, is that they're only getting a 500 million valuation, which is good, sensible. Like it used to be somebody got even close to 100 million and they were calling them a unicorn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one's going to be interesting because it's going to have to, it's a data security company, AI ML, deployed locally, goes through your data, all your databases, and tells you what is vulnerable, what is something that is high profile, helps you identify risk. How it identifies that is going to be unique to your company. From what that's what I took from it, is they train these models, but it's more giving you the model to deploy locally, twist all the knobs and dials, figure out what your risk profile is, and then bring up some of those issues to the surface that you need to take care of.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
It sounds cool. Yeah. And it's probably using large language model, what is prize to identify and discover. But I mean, it's a hard job, right? So that's a great example of where large language model is going to come into place. My hot take on this is that they should use a large language model to get their spelling correct on their articles.
Oh, but
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and the second big spender is in the same space, slightly different application because it's for app integrations.
Yeah, that's a little niche, but yeah, 25 million.
Yeah, app integrations. I mean, I think they're becoming more and more popular. Just to get a light turned on in my place, I have 3 different app integrations. So it's, I see the value in it. I need to run AI on my home to tell me exactly where I'm exposed. But 25 million for Series A is nothing to scoff at. Tel Aviv, obviously. Company's offices in Tel Aviv in the US. Shocker.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, go check them out. There's links to each company here. I think I even maybe jumped over to this one already just to see, because securing non-human entities. I like it. Cool.
All right, we're going to finish up with cookie time and then let you have a great weekend. Let's do it.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
Yeah, so the first was pretty interesting. You dropped this one in. It's an AWS chain attack.
So this is cheating, right? We just had nowhere better to put this. It's not necessarily a CVE, but it's a sort of CVE wannabe written by Shin Shuri. Hey, Israeli, surprise. Thousands of vulnerable EKS customers. So this is the result of research on the boundaries of bug bounty, of course, where he goes through in gratuitous detail, I will add, his attack methodology he's got for risk profile personality test.
Good.
For the service, we discovered 2 zero-day vulnerabilities, has obviously reported these, responsible disclosure, et cetera, going through how he was able to get into EKS clusters. But this is not an easily summarized attack vector.
Yeah.
Did you read through all of it? Easier to watch the video, by the way.
Yeah, the video is great. Surprisingly did. just AWS, the VMs have metadata that if you have non-root access and you're in a container, you can pull some of that information out and then use it to get an API token, then access other containers. Yeah, just extra information that's floating around that if you're slightly misconfigured, you can get exploited. Did I summarize that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. That was way better than way better than he did. Well, except in considerable less details. But yeah, it's good. Go check it out. Once again, links are all below. And if you're fascinated about how this plays out, it's actually really quite good. Or do what we did, or I did. Watch the video.
Yeah. Spot on blog. Hey, here's everything. Here's a quick 3-minute video of exactly what I'm showing. You know, pick your poison. Choose your own adventure. Very nice blog. Good job.
All right.
Shen.
Amazing. And it's, you know, I actually say that. It's like Chen.
Chen? Is it? I knew I was screwing it up.
Yeah, you got to do that. You got to get your Chewbacca on.
Okay.
Bing chat data exfiltration exploit explained. So this is very similar. Another example of how, well, image markdown injection, which is weird. I'm not particularly familiar with that, but it's quite interesting where it goes through again a video demo and responsible disclosure of how it works. Show me the shell code. Exploiting Bing. Did you go through this one? Microsoft's fix, by the way.
Yeah, I did. The fix is out. They were trying to hack Bing's LLM, the language model that they had, and they were able to do some prompt injections. And I know we've talked about prompt injections before. Here's an example of one that's live and relatively quick. And to Microsoft's credit, they fixed it very, very quickly. Obviously, their new big ticket item to take down Google. You want to take care of that thing with as much, I don't know, everything.
Yeah. There's a little, I don't know what I call it, like a jab at OpenAI at the end of it, where it has a little ChatGPT data frustration images across, so that the same essentially, but also a little like they haven't fixed it yet.
Yeah,
stab from
our team is better than your team.
Yeah, essentially a little poke at the competition. All right, not bad.
Yeah, we'll give it to him.
All right. It feels weird that we're not ending with tool time.
I know.
We started with it.
Ending with cookies. I'm getting hungry now. It's lunchtime.
That's true. It's dinner time for me. Almost beer o'clock. The weekend is coming. And that's the end of our show. On time.
Yes.
That really happens.
On time. We're planning to be back in 2 weeks on Fridays. Steve and I don't have a tool time set up, but if you just hit the little subscribe and notification bell, you know exactly when we're going live. It's that easy. Until next time, I'm Mike Foster. He's Steve Giguere, and this is C9K.